Okay, so today we're going to talk about the classics that I read this month. And I don't think I talked about a single one of them on a reading vlog, so surprise! But again, just like last month, I do have to insert my last book in this after the fact because I haven't actually read it yet at the time that I'm filming this because I'm still waiting on it from the library. But according to my hold status, it should be available anytime now, and it's only 100 pages, so I know I'm gonna read it. I just haven't yet. But before we get into the books, a word from today's sponsor, Squarespace. From websites to online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is an all-in-one tool to help you build your online presence and run your business, but we'll talk more about them in a little while. So the two things that I have read so far, the first one is the fourth book in the Asimov Robot Detective series. These are a really fast read, a really fun read, and I don't really have a lot to say in this video because this is the fourth book in the series. Plus, I've talked about the series quite a bit up to this point. It's a detective series following a fellow who started out quite prejudiced and didn't really appreciate having to work with a robot. Their friendship has evolved. The different mysteries that they have to solve take place in different places, different worlds, different planets, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I don't necessarily love the detective side of it, but I love the AI side of it, and I really like the relationship between this detective and the robots, and the way the world has developed and the way his perspective has developed over the series. It's been a really fun read. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I'm now very excited to finally move on to his Foundation series, which I feel like is what Asimov is much more known for. The next book I picked up was incredible, and it wasn't actually a book. It was The Yellow Wallpaper, which was 15 pages long. Oh my goodness. How can 15 pages pack such a punch? This book was horrifying and so interesting. Or pamphlet? I don't know what this is. So this follows a woman who's married to her physician. Her husband is her physician, and she has some sort of mental illness. I would assume it's postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, because we know that she just recently had a baby and she's suffering mentally thereafter. Her husband, what a lovely guy, has decided that the best treatment for her is solitary confinement. She's stuck in a room and every second of her day is closely monitored and mandated. She can't do a single thing without being told what to do. She's not allowed to socialize. She's not allowed to work. She's not allowed to touch pen and paper, have any sort of artistic outlet whatsoever. And she's stuck in a room with this yellow wallpaper that disturbs her greatly, and we watch her rapidly descend deeper and deeper into her mental illness. It starts out with her seeing the designs on the wallpaper moving and committing suicide. Then she starts seeing a woman creeping along within the wallpaper. Sometimes it's many women. She becomes consumed by this. And then I guess that's all I'll say. It's 15 pages long, but I guess I won't tell you the ending. It is such a disturbing story with such a creepy tone to it and an interesting end. This book is based on the author's real life story. I don't know how much of it is fictionalized and how much of it is what she actually went through, but I do know that the author had some mental illness and she was assigned solitary confinement, essentially. Basically exactly what this character had. She wasn't allowed to socialize, work, write, paint, nothing. And it was horrible, and it only made her mental issues way, way worse. So she wrote this book to sort of shed light on how horrifying this treatment of mental illness was. And it was actually really useful because apparently at least one well-known doctor, after reading the Yellow Wallpaper, stopped trying to treat mental illness with this procedure. I think if you want to read this as nothing but a horror, you'll be happy. It's horrifying and fascinating, but knowing the context behind it makes it that much more impactful and truly devastating to think that people, I mean, we all know that mental illness was not handled well not that long ago, and to see the experience of someone and how this truly affected them is horrifying on a whole other level. I loved this book for the story. I didn't look up anything about it until after I was done with it. So I loved it for the experience, and then I was so excited to learn more about it and find out what the meaning behind it was and what the purpose was behind it. And now having learned that, it just adds so much more to the experience. And now I am so excited to reread it. I actually found the audiobook free on YouTube because it's public domain, and it's only 40 minutes long, and I listened to the first minute of it and it's really creepy, so I'm very excited to listen to it on audiobook now. I've physically read it going in knowing nothing. I've learned a little bit about it, and now I'm really excited to listen to it and experience it to its full context. I'm really glad I read this. Thank you to the subscriber who sent it to me. Okay, last book that we're going to talk about. I'll cut to a clip of because, again, I haven't quite read it just yet or even started it. So here it is. So the last book that I ended up reading this month is one that I'm not excited to talk to you about. Of Mice and Men. So I know that this is a really well-loved book. It has a lot of literary merit. It's taught all the time in schools. People love it. All that jazz. And this is a book that we ended up discussing in my Discord a lot. Several people reread it and several people read it for the first time. It was an official buddy read, but we all ended up, or a lot of us ended up reading it together anyway. And I seem to be the only one to hate it, so roast me. So I didn't read this one in school. This was my first time reading it. And I really didn't enjoy it. Now, because my school didn't study classics hardly at all, I do a fair bit of research after I end up reading a book. I usually chat with other people who have read it recently. I always look up articles and breakdowns and, all those kinds of discussions so that I kind of have an idea about the book. So I've learned about the book. I've looked up a lot about this book. And I get it. I get the purpose of it. I get the point of it. And I get why people love it. I really didn't. Not because I think that the purpose wasn't served. I think that I get the point, and I think the point was delivered well. I think the impact was there, and I understand why people love it. But the thing with classics is a lot of it has to do with your experience. And if you connect with the story, that ends up making the point hit so much harder. But if you don't connect with the story, you don't like it, even if you get the point. And that was my case with Of Mice and Men. I did not enjoy reading this in the slightest. I didn't like a single character in the book except for Lenny. I absolutely despised watching Lenny get hurt over and over again and how horribly he was treated. And I understand that you have to look at this in the context of the times, and at this time, mental health was not treated well at all. So I don't fault the book for the time it's written. I appreciate when a book deeply looks in the fallacies of the ways that the time is doing things. For my goodness, I just went on about the Yellow Wallpaper in the last little clip that I filmed for this video. But I hated so much about the experience of reading this book. I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like watching the story unfold. I despised the ending. Even though I get the ending, I still hated it. I don't think that the book, I'm not arguing that the author did a bad job, and I certainly don't think that the book doesn't have its merits, and I understand why people like it, and I understand why people connect with it, and I understand why it's impactful, and I get the point of it. I just hated it. It's kind of like Wuthering Heights, even though they're discussing totally different subject matters, where a lot of people despise with Wuthering Heights because they don't like the story that's telling a message. But I connected with both the story and the message, so I ended up loving it. With Of Mice and Men, I get the message, I appreciate the message, but I hated the story, so I didn't like the classic. And I don't like disliking well-known and loved classics, because I love reading classics. I just happen to really not like this one. I definitely do want to keep talking about it. I chatted with people on the Discord. I chatted with people who love this book and got to see how impactful it is for other people and what makes them love it. And that's why I love buddy reading so much, is because I like walking away with several perspectives and not just mine. And I'd love to continue talking about it in the comments as well. If you weren't a part of the Discord chat and you also want to discuss Of Mice and Men, I would love to discuss it with you. Whether you loved it or hated it, let's talk about the differing opinions. But anyway, back to the clip that I recorded like a week ago. Squarespace has impacted lives all around the world. Listen to these totally true and authentic testimonies that we gathered from real customers. I have a fan page for my cat. I take pictures of him all day long. Sleeping, sitting, playing. He's the cutest. And Squarespace's sharing tools are the best. They have these little blocks where people can share from my website onto their social places, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the places I frequent. It keeps me popular. It helps me find new viewers who love my cat. I have 23 people following my blog. I'm a fashion blogger. And Squarespace's powerful blogging tool helps me to share photos, stories, videos, and updates. I can categorize, share, and schedule posts to make my content work for me. Squarespace is the best website design anyone in the world has ever used. So check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the link in my description to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I recommend Squarespace. We all do. So go check it out now. Those are the classics that I read this month. My next video is going to be my wrap-up video, unless there's going to be a review in between the two. I never really know. But the wrap-up is coming soon for all the books that I read this month, but I like to spend a little bit of extra time on classics for those of you who like chatting about them a little bit more in depth. I'd love to keep chatting with you about these in the comments. Be sure to talk to me if you've read them, if you haven't read them and want to now. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.